Softcover, our online portal where we launch non-fiction books. And today it's a very interesting book considering there is a lot of talk about creators right now and there is a lot of debate and discussion. So the name of the book is Pixels to Profits, a systematic deep dive into the creator economy. So welcome, Ankur.
Hi, thank you.
So let me start with something that I think a lot of people think, especially when you're doing a 9 to 5 and you're in the metro and you're scrolling. People I have heard all the time in metro saying, should have just been a creator instead of doing this 9 to 5, right? Because people assume you just wake up and you just, I mean, the carefully curated video that we get,
Yeah.
15 seconds, 30 seconds,
Yeah.
people imagine that you just wake up and do
Yeah,
it, right?
it's easy.
So let's start with this because there's a large misconception that there's no hard work, that this is instant fame and it's very easy. So
Yeah.
let's start with the difficulty and challenges of being a creator.
Oh, I think you've kind of laid it out so well.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that it's like one walk in the park to become a content creator. And because when we see the end product, we just see, the quickly made reels and the rawness of the content and all, we feel it's easy. But frankly, there's an army of people that go behind it. And then there is, I mean, apart from the content that you see or the content creator that you see, but there are the editors behind it, there are the designers behind it, there are the people who are making the voice, the sound animations and all those things behind it as well. Takes a whole village to kind of get that piece of content in front of you. And that is why a lot of times in the book specifically also I talk a lot about what goes on behind the scenes, which is so which is hard work and rigor. I mean, I really feel that there's a lot of effort that goes in and that needs to be kind of recognized.
Yeah, so since you've had your own career, panning across platforms, which now people know more as content creating platforms. At one point, it wasn't like that. I think when YouTube by itself also first started, it was not seen as a content creation platform.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, you found something funny, interesting, you just put it out. I
Yeah.
think in one example, you even
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
that one viral video
Yeah.
that blew up was simply a father trying to send a file
Yeah.
to his grandfather, and
Yeah.
then that was
Yeah.
the easiest way of
Yeah.
transferring.
Yeah.
And of course, till NFT, from the journey of like a grandfather's, I mean, sending a family file to an NFT. So I was wondering, when we now look at content creation, I think somewhat, or maybe it is my perception, a lot of my friends as well, who think that, content creation somehow is equal to Instagram. Probably because we saw the boom, the maximum to take place, change. And Instagram itself changed from just a photo sharing platform to so many things. The evolution was very fast.
Right.
But there's YouTube. I mean, I also do get a lot of mail sometimes when people send in saying that, YouTube still remains, considering it's free in the sense of the term, it still remains a place where people would actually go and like to watch like long format videos, right? People often go into rabbit holes watching one thing after the other.
Yeah.
So I wanted to understand, like in your perception, what do the platforms now look, how they have changed? Because I know there's a lot in the book, but the audience would really like to know. And how do these separate platforms contribute to the larger creator economy?
That's a great question. And see, every platform, and I think the idea is not to kind of just restrict ourselves to those 3 or 4 major platforms. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, they're obviously one of the the biggest and the best. But frankly, there are more and more platforms coming every single day. And the creator economy is sort of expanding by having more and more such platforms. So there are now newer platforms coming in for only audios or, specifically only for, monetization and things like that. And I think every platform also goes ahead and solves a particular gap in the industry that has always been there, right? So, I mean, they go ahead and solve for that particular gap. When I look at these different platforms, and you rightly said it, I mean, initially YouTube and all of these platforms were just meant to kind of dump content. But during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 period and all, when people were generally stuck at home, they realized that a lot of folks are, number one, consuming a lot of content online, and because people had a lot of time. And there's one example I also mentioned in the book about Khabi Lame, who was who was actually, I think he also he lost his job during the COVID period and all. But as a matter of while just sitting at home and really not doing anything constructive with his time, he started to make some small kind of reels or small videos, and immediately they became viral online. And then he kind of went ahead and became one of the biggest creators on TikTok eventually. So a lot of creators, the genesis of the content creation piece, I feel really happened during the COVID time. It was there earlier, but it was much lesser. During the COVID time, it really got really accelerated big time. And then, we had more and more creators coming in, and the consumption also kind of skyrocketed after that. Um, in terms of the platforms and the use cases, I also oftentimes when I speak to creators, I keep telling them that it's not like a one size fits all. You really can't just make one piece of content. Let's say you're making a professional piece of content for maybe an audience that is best suited for LinkedIn. It might or might not do so well if you're putting it on TikTok, or if you might putting it on Instagram as well. You need to kind of identify where your audiences are. And every different platform has got a different sort of nature of. If you may. So you've got to identify where your right audiences are, and then start building up your storyline or the narrative which suits that audience on that platform. So even if you have one piece of content, and you want to make it for different platforms, you might need to add elements which speak to the audiences on those platforms, rather than just taking a cut and copy paste across all different platforms. That might not work anymore. And like I said earlier, there are more and more platforms coming in. As creators, one should start kind of looking out of the window, start looking out of the box. There are so many new platforms coming in. Start experimenting and start looking beyond the big fours of the major platforms, and start getting in front of more and more sort of consumers or communities on different platforms as well.
Okay. So you mentioned the word viral, and I was actually coming to that because there's a nice, interesting section of what it means to be viral, but also how that sort of people often take one viral video as, okay, this is it, I have made it.
Yeah.
But then often that does not really translate into views for your other videos, or it does not translate into actually people coming in or engaging or following you.
Yep.
Like I've seen like one viral video that's like
Yeah.
absolutely viral. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. It has 3 million.
Yeah.
And then if I go to the creator's profile, it has like 200 followers or 400 followers. And let's say 2 months down the line, that has not shifted significantly. None of the other videos have. I think there was a point when that was that success meter, that if one video is done, you're probably going to get in followers and it's going to sort of like, explode. And I think now more than ever, first the algorithm changed for Instagram. Now I think there are videos that I've seen which are trying to explain the algorithm. There are even videos which are getting a lot of views which explain the algorithm, right? And say that, oh, you need to switch on this feature, you need to do that. And then I just wanted to know, because you've mentioned it so well in the book, I would actually like the audience to hear more about it, the one I read, about this concept of being viral. And also the other point that you make, which is also something we get a lot, which is niche, creating a niche, right? Now, this is on a personal note. For example, suppose I'm following one creator who's already very popular by now, like has significant followers, has brands, tie-ups, whatever. Now, I'm following that person for whatever niche content they're creating, funny videos, reviews, whatever. But often, people who are starting out now, they don't necessarily have a niche. And sometimes they even write that I am not very sure what exactly to go for. Because I guess ideally what happens is you're looking up, which, segment has the most amount of videos, people, is it makeup, is it fashion, is it sports, whatever. So two things. One, of course, to tell the audience what a viral concept that you are sort of explaining so well.
Yeah.
The next is, of course, this mystery of niche. Like if you're actually starting out, or you want to get serious about creation, how do you figure out that niche for yourself?
How much time do we have? Do we have like 5-6 hours for this? Okay, but I think one of the things that I wanted to kind of let's take the first question first. When you say virality, in the book, I also talk about the concept of virality. And of course, virality, to your point, is not equal to success. Success, if you need to be, it has got to be more self-sustaining, and it has to be more sustained. One viral video might or might not just do the trick for you. And you're right, earlier days we used to have it that, okay, one video goes viral and you've arrived, right? But in the new world in which we're living, there is something that we're dealing with which is called attention deficit, right? There's too much of content. Frankly, there's an overload of content. So when you're looking at your phone on, let's say, Instagram, you're just going up, up, up and up. And every video, you probably have a few seconds if it has to catch your attention. Otherwise, you're moving on to the next one, and something is always better than the other one, right? So as a creator, you really have a fraction of a chance to catch hold of the attention of the viewer, so that they come onto your page and they kind of see the other content that you've built, and then they start liking and following and subscribing your page. As a content consumer myself, I consume so much content, but I barely go to any page and start liking and sharing and all those things, because you just don't, as a consumer, there's no incentive to do that. There's so much content already on your feed, So it's becoming more and more difficult for creators to piggyback on that one viral moment and start kind of attracting a sustainable kind of a successful model for themselves. So what I've talked about in the book is a concept I call the 3R concept.
Hmm.
And the 3R concept really talks about relevancy, recency, and relatability. When I say recency, it means that, think it from your mind, anything which is in your top of your mind, or recent memory, or recent happenings that have happened, something which is more current,
Hmm.
make content which is more recent, number one. Then the second part is relatability.
Hmm.
Relatability is something where your heart is more inclined, so like you're able to relate to that piece of content as an audience, and that relatability should translate into something which you really have a heartfelt meaning for, or it kind of resonates with you. And the third piece is relevancy. When you say relevancy, or when I say relevancy, I mean that it has got to be relevant for you. That means my head has to start making sense of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you look at it, the 3 R's is also the 3 H's, because it's got its interlinking with the head, heart, and
Hmm.
hand,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know. So I feel like out of all the experiences and all the different research work that I've undergone while writing this book, and I'm speaking to so many different creators,
Right.
I felt like this, if a creator is kind of sort of keeping the North Pole, North Star on these 3 R's, relevancy, recency, and relatability, there's a much better chance of them to do certainly better than any other piece of content which is not taking care of these 3 R's. So as a creator, if you might not want to be, you might not get viral every single moment with every single video, but if you're taking care of these 3 R's or these 3 factors, then you have a better chance of being more sustainable in your content journey,
Hmm.
where people will be able to resonate more with your content, and they'll be able to kind of be more sort of in tune with you. So I think that's where I feel like it's not about just one viral big trend, but a sustainable model of success, and that sustainable model of success comes through these 3 R's, the concepts. See, the other thing is like, as we just spoke, there's a lot of content
Hmm.
online. If there's a lot of content, there's a lot of content creators, right? This space is getting highly cluttered, and there are more and more content creators coming in. Like, people are now starting to become content creators as a side gig. I mean,
Hmm.
while you're working a day job, you want to become a content creator on the side, because why not?
Hmm.
You might just want to see where you're heading, and if your storytelling is kind of resonating with the audience and all. Not so, I mean, if you end up becoming great, or if you end up becoming sort of successful in your
Hmm.
storytelling, then people don't mind switching over and moving on to
Hmm.
content creation as a full-time job. Now, because of that sort of hustle culture or gig economy which people are building on the side, a lot of folks are trying to kind of figure out what is working in for them. But again,
Hmm.
it's very difficult to come in and realize that, okay, I'm a professional in the daytime, but I'm a stand-up comedian in my
Right.
in my videos. Like, should I talk about my profession, or should I talk about stand-up comedy? So I mean, what really is my niche? And I feel like the one way to kind of identify what your niche is to, in fact, there are two ways. I always call it the move fast and iterate smart. So, like, you keep on making content, move fast on that count, but iterate smartly. Like, keep on looking at the rear view mirror, just to see what your data points are telling you, how your audiences are reacting with you, and if they are sort of indicating you to say that, okay, I mean, you've got a better engagement or better traction on a certain side of content or certain sort of content, then that's where you need to start leaning on. But it's always good to listen, keep one eye to the ground, and keep listening to what your audiences are saying, rather than just kind of going ahead and moving fast and just making content rapidly one after the other without iterating smartly.
Hmm. So one thing that I actually wanted to now focus on, because interestingly, I think when I first realized that there's a whole digital economy, in the sense that there are these companies who also now have, like, I started noticing that creators would often have managed by, right?
Mhm.
There was a whole time when models used to have that. I
Mhm.
remember actors used to have that, and then we had the coming in of the creator management, where companies built up. So I remember doing a story at that and learning actually a lot
Mhm.
about the management aspect of it. But when I was talking to the creators, they would often say that they are also sort of like hamster on a wheel situation, where despite being successful, or despite having, let's say, now a loyal base of people who generally would respond, engage, and all, they would still feel very compelled to consistently keep making content. Like,
Mhm.
I spoke to somebody who actually said that for a one whole year
Mhm.
there was not even a single day where I could take a break, because the thought in my head is, what if something goes wrong?
Right.
Now, of course, things have changed. The other investment, even creators, like full-time creators, would diversify their own. Somebody is launching a brand, somebody is doing something else. But what about this aspect of their business? Because, like I said, I think we all like to look at the rosy aspect. If there's a lot of money in this, that's why, of course, people are also trying to look at it as a side hustle, if not a permanent thing. But what about the other aspect of it, which is the not so probably glamorous aspect of it, where you have to, like you said, consistently doing something on a 9 to 5, at least at some point you can disengage.
Yeah.
But if you're in a creator economy, it happens to us also in news, right? We can't really
Yeah.
disengage
Yeah.
because, if something happens, then you have to react. Like you
Hmm.
just mentioned, you have to respond, you have to be fast. So what happens to the creator side of it when you're like consistently making videos? But there's also a sense of anxiety, because a lot of people start very young. Like you're still studying, or your first job. So there's a lot of money that has come in, or there's a lot of recognition that has come in, and you're still trying to handle it. And then there's a demand of the numbers,
Yeah.
which is like, oh, I need to create, I need to keep going at it. So what is, like, since you've seen and spoken and experienced this, what would be the, I don't know whether it's advice or like that North Star, as you said, to keep in mind while you get also sucked into that, oh, I can't stop. I need to just keep doing this to make sure that the money doesn't stop or the work doesn't stop.
See, content creation and content creators, they are like startup founders now.
Right.
So you are in a way building your own brand at the same time,
Right.
and you are kind of operating in the same psyche as a startup founder would. And as a typical startup founder would, there is no, like, 9 to 5, or
Right.
there is no 35 hours in a week sort of a work hour. You've got to be in the grind all the time, and you have got to do the grunt work to be able to come out of the clutter and be a startup founder who kind of is making it right to the
Right.
next level. Now, having said that, the flip side is that 9 out of 10 startups don't work, you know. And also in the same creator economy world, the flip side is that this is a highly competitive world, and it will end up taking a bit of your, you've got to take care of your mental wellness and your emotional wellness, because burnout is real in this case. There's always somebody next to you whom you're following or whom you're seeing is always making content. While you are resting, somebody is making content, and you suddenly see it pop it up. And there's always going to be that FOMO effect, which is very real. But I would believe that, see, I mean, I've had a chance to work with so many different creators across so many different countries, across so many different levels. And the one characteristic that I've seen of people who are really successful creators is that they've prioritized their mental wellness. They haven't just gone down the rabbit hole and continue to make, whatever content they're just making over and over again, but they've been able to hold themselves, or that urge to continue making, dumping content, but they've actually, held themselves back, zoomed out a little, realized, okay, if this is the particular topic that's going viral or is sensational at the moment, what is their take on it? And has been more mindful in the way that they've built content rather than just, pumping and dumping content. So I would only imagine that most of the more successful creators have prioritized their mental wellness and their emotional well-being, and being able to be more strategic about the content that they're putting out in there, rather than just going at it all the time. So and again, to your point, I think you rightly mentioned a lot of younger kids have started becoming content creators much earlier in the times. In fact, I was reading some report somewhere which says that, I think in the US, was that more than 50% of the teenagers today, they want to become full-time YouTubers as they grow up. I mean, that's a staggering number. Every one in two kids wants to become a full-time YouTuber. So I mean, they are already getting enamored by it, and they're seeing those, they see it as a low-hanging fruit, and they find that it's much easier to accomplish than going to a 9 to 5 kind of a grind and all. So all of those things are real, and people are getting into this, and especially kids. And my only advice to them is that they need to be they need to calm the hell down right now and see for themselves that it's not about just putting in a lot of content. Whatever, if they keep on putting in content, AI is going to come in tomorrow, and AI is going to increase the number of content online, not by a matter of 1x or 2x, but maybe 10x or even 100x. There'll be much, much more content. So if you want to just get lost in the crowd of making content, then that's one choice. But if you want to be away from that and actually create a niche for yourself and have that be known for the sort of content that you're making, then it's better to have lesser but more quality rather than just going in for a quantity approach.
Two things actually, two parts to the last question. One, how do you now see the future? Like 5 years ago, I think, like you might mention, right? In
Yeah.
COVID, everybody was making coffee. That's all that was happening.
Yeah.
Bread, coffee. It was a lot in the kitchen because you couldn't move out.
Mm.
Then, of course, we expanded. The moment the first,
Mm.
restrictions moved and you could travel, people, I think, just,
Yeah.
got carried away by traveling. So many people gave up their 9 to 5 because now you can travel, you can work remotely, you can create content. So maybe in the next 5 years, is there anything that you think would just, along with AI, of course, because now we have a lot of discussion with Ghibli, recently, the most recent endeavor, there's a lot of discussion, people making it, people talking against it. So it's right now the most trending concept, I think, online. But what do you see in the next 5 years changing, majorly? The second is, so one of the things that I have begun to notice is that there's a lot of, like you were mentioning, that there's that relatability factor, I have realized, is coming for a lot of storytelling. Even if they are like comic sketches, like, very brief, picking up the latest topic, making something fun out of it, even if it's like straight piece to camera or just enacting. And the other is like proper storytelling, even if it's like so-called mundane. You're just talking about, okay, my first day of college was like this. That has a lot of people relating to it. So do you think that might be one of the factors that is going to change that, how you're going to spin a story as opposed to just taking a product and talking about it, whatever? And how do you see the next 5 years in this economy?
Well, let's start with the first one first.
Right.
When you say next 5 years, I think the elephant in the room is AI.
Right.
And there's no denying the fact that that's going to change the way content creation and consumption both is going to happen.
Right.
Maybe if you look back, maybe 5 to 10 years, the way we were consuming content 5 years back or 10 years back is entirely different from what we're doing today, right? I mean, even as consumers of content. So I think in the future, that's going to definitely move. The needle will definitely move, and I won't even say that it's going to be about AI enabled content or AI supported sort of content. I mean full-fledged AI content, end-to-end sort of content. I feel like humanoids, synthetic human beings, they're all coming up, and they will become content creators by themselves. And why not? Because they always look good. They can be they can be shooting at 5 different locations at the same time. They never get tired. They can do 10 shoots in a day. So there are so many advantages that AI will have over human beings, and it'll always going to get over indexed in that sense. So I think, coming back to the point, I think AI is definitely going to take over. It's not only about just AI enabled content, but also
Right.
synthetic humans and AI humanoid robots and all making content. I've already started seeing some unboxing videos by humanoids, starting on.
Wow.
So I mean, that's the way things will be. So I do feel like one of the big changes that's going to happen is that, and which kind of dovetails into the second part of the question also, is that number one, there'll be an oversupply of content, and there'll be a very, very less attention span that we'll have. Like, it's going to be opposite spectrums, right? But what is going to happen from a content creation perspective and consumption perspective that's going to happen is, which is your second part of the question, is the storytelling piece, where you will, as a creator, you need to break away from that. You need to break away from that mold of just making sort of a lot of similar looking content. You've got to identify yourself differently by the way you're telling your story, and that will only happen when you're more authentic and natural and raw in the way you're doing it. So if you are going ahead and talking about something as monotonous as these videos which are very popular now, the GRWM videos, the get ready with me kind of videos, or there's another example I talk about in the book, is about this lady called Risa Tisa in the US, and she had a bad breakup or something, and she was sitting in the car, and every day she used to just record, she used to just do a monologue on what's going on in her life, and this latest breakup that she had, and what options does she have, etc. She was just talking to the camera, that's it, in a setting which was in her own car.
Right.
And it became one of the biggest viral hits on YouTube, on TikTok ever. So I think that's starting to resonate more, and it will continue to happen more when you break away from the normal clutter of sort of synthetic content, if you may, and bring your own original self into the camera and just talk about it from more sort of authentic first person voice, and try to connect with the audiences sitting on the other side of the screen, because eventually you are trying to build a community, and a
Hmm.
community will only be built on on connections, and connections is how you basically communicate. So it's all going to come back to where you are at and how is it that you're going to connect and communicate.
Okay. I think that was a really fascinating conversation because didn't realize when the timer sort of went off for us to stop. And for more interesting stuff, you'll actually have to read the book. And since I did that, I had so many questions and I had more questions, which unfortunately we can talk about. But I think the book would be like a good window for those, like I said in the beginning, who think that, oh, content creation is so easy and, you quit our 9 to 5. So probably just read this book first to make that final decision for yourself. Thank you, Ankur, so much for telling us so many things in like very comprehensive manner, I think, and making it easier for me on a personal level as well, because I'm like, okay, I had so many questions in
Yeah.
my head reading it, but there was also fun to look. I think for me, the most enjoyable part was the historical bits as well that you pulled up.
Oh yeah.
I had a lot of fun knowing about that. And
Yeah.
thank you so much. And please subscribe to your YouTube channel and also follow us on our social media. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.